How is everybody doing? Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. You've got Enrico here, Director of Strategy at DSM, joined by Darren McGarrow, President of DSM.
What's up?
Today, we have a special guest we're going to introduce you to. Topic of today's discussion is how to close more business in 2021. 2020 straight up sucked, no doubt about it. Well, what the three of us have been talking about is looking for the future, like what's coming up next. And this, I hope, it's designed to be practical no matter what you're selling, whether you're an agency like us trying to close more business, whether you're a plumber, you're selling toilets or a new roof, it doesn't matter, right? We want this to really be practical to every business owner and to every marketer. So I hope you guys all find this helpful. I want to introduce our very, very special guest, Lee McKnight. He's a buddy of ours. He's a guy that we love to talk shop with. We talk marketing, we talk business. So Lee, thank you for joining us. Please tell us about RSW. Tell us about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me so much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, so we're, as of this month, is our start of our 16th year, and we are outsourced new business development. So we predominantly work with agencies, or our clients. That also includes PR, which obviously a different animal, but that's kind of where we play. So we get hired to become a part of the agency, reaching out to prospects, marketers, try to get them in the door, in a meaningful way with a qualified meeting at the top of the funnel. But then for us, it's about real business development, not just lead gen, trying to actually take them down the path and get as close to close as we can. Mm-hmm. So we're providing a salesperson, we're building lists for them. There's a marketing component, there's a consulting component, all goes kind of into every program. So that's what we're doing. We're reaching out to all different kinds of verticals.
Nice, love it.
I got to ask you real quick. Sorry to interrupt, Dan, but do you find it intriguingly that you're sitting with agency directors? So these guys are basically helping their clients, in a perfect world, I would imagine, take a potential lead through the sales funnel to a conversion.
Yeah. Do
you find it amazing to see more than not, or like what's the percentage that you're seeing that these guys they're like the cobblers that don't even know how to fix their own shoes? Like, we don't deal in that, so I'm curious, because we deal with it on the client side where you're literally like, how have you been in business for 40 years doing this? And I'm sure on the agency side, these are the people who are supposed to be the engines that are driving other people through or making them look great. So I'm just curious about that.
Actually, it's interesting that you bring that up. So I've been here, it'll be 13 years in December, and it still is kind of crazy to me that the cobbler's children thing is 100% true. And I think, ultimately some of it is just a time thing where you have owners or principals, a lot of them who are good at the new business piece of it, even at the top of the funnel, they can't do it all, right? Small to mid-sized agencies, which is our bread and butter, our sweet spot. That's just a lot of it. But we have just as many others who come in and say, look, we didn't start this business to be new business people. It's not what we want to do, or we're just not good at it. If you actually get us in that room to like a presentation, pitch, proposal, yeah, you know what, we'll crush it. But all those steps over time, like with value, but it is still interesting to me that you think about what an agency does is generally so much of it is selling to whatever extent, but they're terrible at selling themselves.
Yeah, they're literally the tip of the spear,
exactly.
It's interesting that you say that, because I come at it from a perspective of, I guess, being an account guy. Like, I don't know, Enrico could probably talk to this better than I can, because I don't watch myself. Like, I'm not a sales guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I ultimately am a sales guy.
I was going to say, you say that, but
to me,
but I get it. Yeah.
It's about the relationship. So like, there's different people, but coming at it from another side. And again, this is not DSM, but you might have a creative as the CEO, or a PR professional. In that case, it should be easy, but or easier. But it's interesting you say that. So yeah, interesting.
Cool. So obviously, hindsight is 2020. No pun intended. Looking back over the last year, Lee and Darren, what are, aside from the economic downturn itself, that was its whole thing that nobody could really predict it. But what missteps did you guys see business owners making over the last year that prevented them from closing new business? Like for me, one that I saw is this sort of just like defeated attitude that the business is, we're just not going to close business. We're just not going to make sales. That's something that like, that's a big misstep. But what do you guys see?
Yeah, I can take. Yeah, I mean, I yes, for sure. Dan, because and it was interesting. So everyone was freaking out in the beginning of all this, right? And understandably so, of course. And for us, we, and what we told our clients and what we told other agencies, and I was talking to a lot of them that were freaking out, is new business cannot stop. Yes, budgets are being frozen. Everyone is freaking out, but it was only about not even 3 weeks where our meeting counts got back to where they were. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Year over year, our clients closed 23% more business than they did this time last year. What was happening was, yes, things were frozen. No one knew what was going on. But then suddenly, once everybody found their footing, we still haven't found our footing, I guess, in some ways, but they realized, oh, crap, we need help now with this COVID-related issue or what have you. And there was business to be had. We actually had to follow up more often than we usually did because, of course, we had to be respectful. We had to adjust our messaging. Everyone's working from home now. How does phone calling as far as sales work? But we worked through it and we made sure, we talked to some clients off the ledge and some agency folks. And so I think you're 100% right, though. There was that defeatist attitude and they thought there's nothing here. So, and they kind of stopped the process, which I think was a big mistake. And a lot of them realized, oh crap, okay, we gotta get back in this. But some didn't, and it was not good. The other one I saw, and I'll throw it out there to y'all, but was hiring. A lot of outside sales folks that were doing fine, at conferences was how they were getting business, face-to-face networking, all that stuff, right? Stopped. It still stopped. And so you had a lot of outside, sucked, but a lot of outside sales folks now who were looking for jobs and they always present well. And I'm not trying to be callous, but you had a lot of agencies thinking, oh, you know what? They're sharp, and realized, but they're not inside salespeople. And not that you can't do both, but I don't know what y'all's experience have you seen, but it's usually, it's tough to find someone who excels at both. So they made a lot of hires that did not work out. And so those were two of the things that for sure that we saw.
Yeah. From my standpoint, and one of the things, if, our audience, if you're going to watch this, one of the things that RSW and Lee does, I don't know if it's on a weekly or bi-weekly, but 3 Takeaways, it's a great series that they do on YouTube. And,
thanks.
I advise everybody, if you're watching it, to check it out. But changing that messaging, I found very interesting was, to your point about the salesperson, and again, being an agency like ours, where this is how we kind of, have run parallel paths over time, is, like, we have done a pretty good job at DSM of like our messaging and things like that. But through this year, finding your footing as a 14, 15 person agency, to have the owner be there through, DSM, the initials are on the door. So of course I have to be a part of almost everything with regards to the upfront process, from a transparency and trust part of it, which is really important. But the messaging that people either put into effect, it went from like 0 to 80 in DEFCON 1.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of it, you had a great 3 Takeaways. This was probably in like April or May, maybe, where it was like, people, you need to change your messaging. Like, we all get, we're, going through struggling times, and like, let's evolve here. Like, what's happening next, and getting people over that hump, not only from a new business standpoint or from a like a messaging standpoint, like, what's next? Stop looking back. Let's look forward. As hard as it might be, or as uncertain as it might be, nothing good has ever come from people looking behind them.
So 100% agree.
We have to learn from that. And I think that's the message that had to come from it. And we are, we're learning, we're going through a second wave now. It's like, I feel like we're like going through deja vu from like March is happening all over again. But I think people, one, have an understanding after going through the first wave that, one, there's going to be a January 1st, 2021. And two, that hopefully they've learned some of the missteps they went from going through, the first phase of this, and not apply that to the second phase. Because if we do that, it's going to be it's going to be a disaster. Not only that, there's going to be a lot of really bad messaging on email blasts and like people reaching out. I think I reached out to you once on LinkedIn because it was like, people stop cold selling me on LinkedIn. Right. Just stop. It's awful.
That's gotten bad. It's gotten so bad.
Yeah.
And it's so ineffective. I mean, it drives me nuts. Yeah.
So
for sure.
So to your point, Lee, you mentioned things kind of freezing, budgets freezing. Again, everything with the economy, people get a little bit nervous to spend money, right? And that's legit. Again, B2C, B2B, doesn't really matter. Everybody's just uncertain, right? And when there's uncertainty, people are a little bit more hesitant to spend money, whether that's hiring an agency, getting a new roof, you name it, right? Getting a new car. So how do you approach that, when you're selling, when you're working with new businesses, getting a potential customer over that financial hesitation, right? Because every dollar you spend, like is this worth the risk? Like, am I making a big mistake right now? Because I can't afford to make a big mistake in 2020. So how do you help prospects get over that financial hesitation?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious because I can provide feedback certainly at that top of the funnel. And once we get, with our clients, once pretty much it gets kind of the proposal phase, that's usually where we're kind of out of it. So I think, there's different ways to look at this, right? And different timing with some of this that I think you all can definitely add for folks watching. For us, I know up front, what we've got to make sure that we do in terms of that type of hesitation is right out of the gate, you've got to show that value. You've got to show that you get their challenges, that you get their pain points, and provide that value with every touch. We recently talked about, and Darren, I appreciate the shout out on the video series, but one we just filmed is the cold LinkedIn selling's gotten terrible. What's also gotten terrible is these follow-up emails that it's just checking in. And that's always been a thing, but man, it just, I get 2 or 3 a day. You're wasting so much real estate and opportunity when you follow up and all you're doing is just fluff and just checking in, or, hey, did you get my email? No one cares. It's like, no, I'm going to delete this immediately. So I think part of it is just making sure you're going to avoid that type of hesitation. And one of the things that one of our business directors, his name happens to be Brandon, we were talking about the other day is, and he's really good at this, is right out of the gate, showing them what it's going to look like to work with you before any money's involved at all. And if you're showing that polite persistence and that hustle, I think that's going to be, something that's going to help you there. And I think the other is just tactically, and I know I don't have to tell you all this and folks watching, but, and it's tough, especially if you're in a bit of a bind during COVID, or you're a younger agency, you're trying to find your footing and all this happen in your gut, sometimes like, this is not a good fit for us, but we got to do this. We have to, essentially. But if that pricing comes out that quick, or if it does come out really quick, they're shopping, they just want the cheapest they can get.
Yeah.
And that's tough. So I think just up front, and that's not quite what you asked me, so I'll stop there. But once you get further down the funnel, maybe I'll throw it back to you all. I think you still got to show that value throughout.
Kids, stick to your guns.
There we go.
Stick to your guns.
Yeah.
The plan that got you here, it might not be 100% right, but even as a young agency, I will tell you this. How many times, like, Lee, you like just started teetering, you had your eyes over the edge, and you were getting close to making that proverbial jump. Stick to your guns.
Yeah.
You have to be flexible. Certainly, there are certain clients, we're dealing with one right now where this potential lead, they get it, and it's showing up in other ways where they're a young company. I personally know the gentleman, but they're reaching out, they're doing all the things from a human level that make us realize that if we can do the right things and grow with them, sometimes you have to be flexible in that regard.
Sure.
If it means an award for a piece of creative for your team, or if it means, the budget might not be where it should be coming out of the gate.
Yeah.
But if you can run parallel with this company and the product is really cool and the person gets it, magic can happen down the road. So stick with the plan. Be flexible, but stick with the plan, and don't veer off course, because I can tell you right where you're going with this. And early on in DSM, there's a few cases where wish I could have done it over. You know, you live and you live and you learn.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see that hundreds of times over because you're dealing with agencies all over the country.
Yeah.
But man, stick to your guns, because what has gotten you there with regards to your gut with people and with the right clients that you think are going to be viable and are going to put in the work as much as you are doing, those are the ones that are going to help you win. Ultimately, those are the ones that are going to see it through when things get hard. That's what I judge it on.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome advice. Yep. Yeah. Very much agree. It's hard to do sometimes, but
yeah,
it's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's different for a 14-year agency. It might be different from a agency in year 2, but I can tell you more times than not, my dad used to say this to me all the time: no sense in being stupid unless you show it, son.
Nice.
You know, and he said that to me a lot when I was in high school, but I am still here, and I learned a ton from that saying, and now I'm passing it along to my 9-year-old who seems to be following down the same primrose path that I did. So hopefully he'll pass it on to his son.
Right on. That's cool.
So hopefully, the economy, in some ways, we're in the second wave, but the economy seems to be doing better, hopefully. Hopefully it'll continue to improve. What are some efficiencies businesses can make to help improve their we call it a conversion rate, right? How can businesses work more efficiently to close that business? Like we see for some of our clients, we say, oh, it's a great problem to have. You've got more leads than you know what to do with, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that is a good problem to have. But in a sense, it's like, if you can't work those leads, what happens to them, right? It's actually a terrible customer experience if you come in, you're like, hey, I'm interested. And if you can't be worked properly and you're not getting that service that you would expect for that relationship, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. So we actually see some clients like, hey, guys, don't bite off more than you can chew, right? If you can close or work 3 leads a week, work 3 leads, right? So what are some efficiencies like that businesses need to focus on to do a better job closing business in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point there. I mean, and I had actually just last week was giving a presentation, and the point of it was not biting off more than you can chew. And I think that's, I'm sure you all seen it too, whether it's an agency or not, but you have, with all the best intentions, and I'll go back because the agency world, what I know best, but you got folks that will, okay, we're going to go after hundreds of leads out of the gate. We're going to be writing, blog posts. We're going to be doing video and podcasts. We're going to minimally do 2 or 3 of those a week and make all these plans as they should, but just get way too ahead of themselves. And inevitably, I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've seen it or heard, folks tell us, agencies tell us, it was about 3 weeks in and client work, we got frustrated. We weren't seeing the leads come in. And literally it's like 3 weeks to a month. And it's like, well, that's nothing. It's like, yes, that things can happen that fast. We'll see our clients, for example, close. And it's so dependent. I'm sure you all could tell me, I mean, it could be very different, but it really depends on the vertical, depends on the services you're offering. But we see about 30% of our clients close business in the first 6 months. We'll see the bigger chunk close between month 6 and 12. And you look like a branding firm versus an SEO firm. And so, and also the verticals like a pharma versus CPG or something else. So it all depends, but I think that's what I see the most. And what I always try to, can't say it enough, kind of like to stick to your guns. It's baby steps. And it may seem like it's not enough, but, and you pointed it out, Dan, was, if it's 10 leads to start, if it's 10 companies, it's 10 companies. With the presentation I gave, I gave a framework for, you need to literally do a roadmap for month 1 and then go week by week and plan that out. Not literally every detail, but say, I'm going to reach out to these 20 and here's the channels I'm going to use. and here's how I'm going to do it. So you can really kind of stick to your guns. And after that month, you can see, and you know what? If it's not working for you, try to be self-aware enough where you say, we got to hire somebody, or we have to do something else. But I think that's, and see where you are after that month, you know, and even if it is just 10, like you said, so be it. But if you can stick to that, that's where you should start, you know, and I think that's probably, that's the biggest thing, you know, kind of big picture where you see what agencies need to be doing, you know, looking towards 21, which is close.
Definitively, to your point, Lee, it's about patience. Like, people don't have it. Like Dan, you know, who heads up our strategy, and the iterations that we've done over the course of time, and the amount of trial and error, and will this work? Like, let's try this, see what it is. And, you know, we're still evolving with this piece. I mean, we've done 5 or 6 of these now, and the cadence is different. Things come up. Again, we're not a 50-person shop. You know, things inevitably come up.
Sure.
And try to be respectful of everybody. I just try to hammer home on the other side of that. I try to hammer home every week. We have a weekly meeting for DSM zone marketing. And I'm like, we cannot let our marketing fall to the wayside. That's the overarching message. How that gets done, and allowing other people to, knowing for myself that I can only do so much. There's only so much of me that can do these things, or for Dan. And there's also a sort of a delicate nuance to knowing, like Dan, God bless him, he never says no. Very rarely. In the 3.5, 4 years that he's been here, he never says no. That's great. But if I were somebody who abused that, I hope I don't, by the way, as we're getting into this, I hope I'm not opening up Pandora's box, but like, not abusing that, that's also a nuanced skill that I think a lot of leaders miss. It's like, all right, we're going to do this. Here's how it's going to happen. It's got to be done this way. Like, people in positions like where we are as directors and VPs and CEOs or CFOs or COOs, like, and get out of the way. There's tons of people who do it better than you. And that's the reason that you've brought them in. And if they suck at what they do, then you've done a crap job of hiring.
Yeah.
You know, but like,
fair point.
The best idea at our agency, like our credo, best idea wins. I don't care if it's me or if it's an intern. Like, that's how we roll.
That's cool.
One of our newest employees come in, they're like, this is a great idea. You know, like for Dan, letting Kathleen or John or, you know, somebody, one of the newer people run with an idea, like, run with it. I don't know if it's going to work. In my head, sometimes I'm like, oh boy, like, I don't know.
Right.
But more times than not, it ends up something good comes out of it. A learning comes out of it. It might not like bring together the entire universe, but like, let's learn from it. Let's see what's working, what's not working, and we go from there. You know,
That's awesome.
Getting out of the way, though, I think is so important, and a skill that so many leaders miss.
Yeah.
Like, get out of the way.
Yeah. I said for us, and over the last few months, we've even internally been revising our sales process and how we try to bring on new business. I remember there was a point where we're like, hey, this is taking way too long, right? We're spending way too much time on this. And everybody was like, yeah, agreed, totally. So we're like, all right, how do we fix this process, right? So that we're developing the relationship, we're understanding the goals, and we're doing all the things we need to do, but let's do it in a way where we can like get to it quicker. And now we're at a point where it's like, from, Darren takes an intro call to the time we pitch, it's maybe 2 weeks, right? We can get all that in there. We get the questions answered, we go through it, and we know pretty quickly if this relationship is going to work or if it's not. But we've, looking back and say like, hey, we're spending way too much time, let's do this smarter, was huge for us because,
and it was such a disaster. It was such a disaster. Like, it's now 2 weeks, 4 meetings from me getting on an intro call with John to hopefully closing. Like, and
that's awesome.
The process, and within that process, what's most important is the fact that these guys are going through a discovery process. So before the proposal even gets out, by the time we get to stage 3 and 4, which is the pitch and the follow-up of the services agreement, if we decide to move forward, there is zero conversation about services and maybe budget a little bit. There might be a small negotiation. Other than that, they know exactly how much it's going to be. They know exactly what they're going to get. They know exactly who is going to do it. And it's fairly easy. And these guys, to the point, getting out of the way. Thanks for getting me out of the way, Dan. Appreciate that, pal.
We bring people in where they're needed, right? Like, I'm not on the intro call, but I'm on the discovery, right? You handle the intro call to start building that relationship. So we figure out, like, hey, I don't need to be on that call. I need to be over here. We need Darren to be plugged in here. Again, it's just efficiency is all it is, really.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. The last question, gents. All right. So for those who hadn't heard, there will be a January 1st, 2021. I know. There's going to be two types of people, I think. There's going to be folks who are prepared and who have a plan for the coming year. And then there's going to be people who just let 2021 happen to them. All right. That's just the way to put it. So 2020, it's going to be behind us soon. What steps are you guys taking based on what you've learned over the last year? What are you guys going to change? What are you going to do different? How are you going to innovate based on the way you've done business over the last year?
Yeah, I think part of it is just understanding. Well, it's kind of, quite frankly, I'll use y'all's example. I mean, you stopped, took a step back, when you looked at, okay, what do we need to change? I think that's what agencies, or whether you're an agency or not, folks watching, you've got to do that. You've got to have some self-reflection and know when to get out of the way, but bring your team together at the same time and sit and listen. And, I think, there's several things that we see why agencies aren't driving new business. Part of what we already talked about, it's having that patience, understanding if something is not working, change it, but understanding also that, this is a process and it might take some tweaks. So I think part of it's just having that proper mindset going in and understanding that. And then when you get down into a little bit deeper, what you have a lot of agencies doing is not doing the right prep, not doing the homework. And that's where we go back to this cold LinkedIn selling and these emails that we're all getting, where they obviously have no idea what it is that I do, what you do. If they just took 2 seconds, Google's your friend. I talk about that. It's too easy today to be able to go in and just do some upfront homework. Take 15, 10 minutes even. You can take longer if that's ideal, but just show them that, look, there's a reason we're talking here. It's not just blasting out because you're just on some list. We are experts in this space, and we really truly believe we can help you. And here's why. And I think it's, ultimately, and so there was an Adweek article that just came out a couple of weeks ago. There was a survey that they did. I don't know if you all saw it, but the headline was essentially 40% of brands are probably looking to change their agency in 2021. What a double-edged sword. I mean, you think about, okay, that's 40% of agencies that are going to not have that client anymore. That sucks. That's also a huge opportunity for everyone, these agencies out there to show what you got, and it's why you got to start planning for new business like now. And it's self-serving of me to say, but it's just true. And, I think part of it too, and I will give you all props. I think one of the things that, it was a quote I just saw the other day, and it said 95% of sales performance, I'm reading it here, it's attributed to your mental state. The quote was, positivity and its transformative power becomes your biggest lever for success. I would actually put passion in there rather than positivity, because there's days when you just feel like crap and you're not feeling it. But I'll go back to you all, because I think that the content you all have produced over these last 6 to 8 months, one of the things we always tell, and I preach it every day, is don't talk at your prospect, talk to them. You have an email that reads like an ad, or you haven't done your homework, and Darren, especially a lot of the videos you've done lately, you say you're not a salesperson, but you know what? You're not, you are, even though you're on a screen, I think you do a good job of relating to the audience and being, I hate to use the word authentic, that's way too overused, but you're being yourself. But and I would tell agencies or other businesses to watch some of that content you all are doing, because you're also giving them value, but you're not shoving it down their throat and you're not selling them. But inherently you kind of are, you're showing them, again, here's what it would be like to work with us. We got hustle, but we're smart, and we're just going to talk to you. We're going to do what's in your best interests. And so I think that if you can be relatable and again, show them that there's value in working with you rather than shoving it down their throat, it can be a skill not everyone has, but you got to strive for that. And even if it's on the page versus video, you know, you got to find ways to do that. So I just talked a lot. I'll hush, but I think that's the biggest thing.
I appreciate that. I think there's a great deal of brutal wonderfulness in being vulnerable. And to me, that's where the enjoyment comes out of this. Like I said, it's about the relationship. So having the time to like sit down and do this and to have the relationships, again, we've never met in person, but we're helping each other. We're not selling, we're helping. We're trying to, if you put good begets good. If you put good out into the world, I feel like good's going to come back. And that's why this type of stuff is so important. You know, for myself and Dan, we just enjoy it, but putting it out there, there's never a situation. And, you know, I talk to the staff, there's never really a situation where if you do something that is befitting of humankind, it's going to come back to you. And that's just, you know, what we try to do here as, you know, we kind of wrap this up and, you know, wrap it up into a bow. Like the whole point of this wasn't to sell anybody. It was let's talk about how to help. Like this is what we're seeing on different levels. Honestly, thank you so much for, you know, the time today and
thank you.
I know you have another meeting you got to get to now, but appreciate it. And we're super psyched to be able to get this out. And guys, like I said, RSW and Lee do a series called 3 Takeaways that if you're in the agency world, absolutely vital, but outside of the agency world, it's just really dope knowledge. Like it's just good wisdom. And so from us to you, Lee, thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the great work.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, appreciate everything you do. And hopefully we'll be able to come back together in 2021 and to be able to talk about how we're getting some of these new clients and new businesses that are coming out into the world. And, you know, business is better and life is better, hopefully.
Focus on the positive. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Dan.
Thanks so much for having me, man. It's awesome. I love talking to you guys.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. Lee, shameless plug. Where can people find you?
rswus.com. That's our site. And then we're on LinkedIn and YouTube. Same.
Cool. Awesome. All right, Lee. Thank you again for your time. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon, buddy.
All right.
All right, Lee. Thanks.
Yeah.